Next to pitching, we know that the Guardians value the catcher position very highly, but they haven't found a league average starter at the position in over a decade. So if Bo Naylor doesn't have a breakout season in 2026, who is the future catcher for the Guardians?
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everydayers or new listeners or everybody in between? This is Locked On Guardians, the only daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians covering your team every day, the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. You're here to get your fix on Cleveland Guardians. We're here to give it to you and talk about the Cleveland Guardians as we do here every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Justin Lada, and I have been the co-host of this podcast for the last 4 years and counting. And I've also been covering the Cleveland Guardians minor league farm system for the last 19 years as a prospect writer and editor.
As mentioned, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On expanded into baseball. Before that, I was a writer at Scout and 24/7, nationally focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it might be that you get podcasts, as well as a big shout out to all of our everydayers, insiders, and everyone else who is taking part with us, commenting, reviewing, all that stuff, watching every day. Thank you all for joining us and helping out.
Yeah, we got plenty of things to talk about as we ramp up into the first spring training game this Saturday. And there's daily media availability with Stephen Vogt. So we're keeping tabs on that down in Arizona. So we'll have everything going on down there as well. On today's show, though, we're going to talk about if this is a make or break year for Bo Naylor, how the playing time at catcher will shake out with David Fry and Austin Hedges, and who else could be the future at catcher for Cleveland if it is not Bo Naylor. I also want to shout out, I believe it's Philly, who had a great comment saying that loves the show and is excited. I think they made a comment, Jeff, that they're also a teacher, I think, or they went to somewhere in New York. I don't know, but they said if you're like anybody else he knows as a teacher that you're underappreciated and unfairly so, which I get. My wife's a teacher, so I get that all the time.
Yeah, it's I won't get into it all. It's always an interesting time when you are a teacher. I will say that.
Yeah. Yep, but we like to talk baseball here. We know that's what you're here for as well. So, Bo Naylor, he had a really good September. We've seen that story before from Bo Naylor, right? We've seen the September breakout, and we thought, I know you and I both thought 2024, man, we thought, didn't we say that Bo Naylor in 2024 was like the second most important hitter in the lineup going into that year?
We did.
Yeah, we were like, I think he could be the second best hitter in the lineup, and that did not work out for us. But he was still a starter all year and started for them in the playoffs. And then he was a starter all year again last year and had another great September. So is Bo Naylor an every other year September guy? How long can that carry you in your career? Or did he finally figure something out last year is the question. Stephen Vogt, ironically enough, on Tuesday and in Goodyear said that he thought that September Bo Naylor was the real Bo Naylor. And he says the sky is the limit for him. And this is going to be a breakout year for him. And he can't wait to see it.
I wish that was the case. The thing with Bo Naylor is there's multiple things at play here. One, he definitely seems like another example of we see a large number of players coming because, listen, I'm in my mid-40s. As a kid, guys would come in the league. They weren't in peak condition. They would eventually get into peak condition, and that's why over the years, the weight rooms in the minors weren't as good, things like that, some of the conditioning stuff. I remember when, like, players doing Pilates was, like, headline news. Like, it increased my flexibility. Like, it was a different game, even, like 30 years ago. But we don't see players come into baseball anymore and level up. We don't see them power up. People got mad at me when I brought this up last time, but like Bo Naylor might have peaked as a rookie because that might be like before the league catches on to who you are. Pete Alonso's highest WAR season is still his rookie year. There is Julio Rodriguez, rookie year. Adley Rutschman, rookie year. Stephen Kwan, rookie year. For a lot of players, they actually have their highest production as a rookie, and then it goes downhill from there. Bo's 2024 was not great. His 2025, he had the nice, rebound towards the end where he was a player you could count on. He ended up with an 85 WRC plus. Frankly, at the catching position, I'd probably take that if he could keep that up over the course of the year. Now, before anyone sits there and goes, oh, negative Nelly, Jeff, you're being too negative. If you do want to have some hope here, if you do want to think like, there's a point where you and I had Bo Naylor as the top hitting prospect in this system. We had him as a top 3 prospect. We thought that he was going to be an above league average bat. Well, you can look at his BABIP at a 222. Now, he doesn't hit the ball all that hard. So he's never carried great BABIPs. His highest BABIP was that rookie year at 267. 290 is typically average. So he is well below league average. It also tends to show a poor quality of contact that he carries low BABIP. So he's a guy who has not good quality of contact. That's there. So then you look at the BABIP though, but last year was 222. So getting back up to 260, you're talking about raising his batting average closer to 235. That would put him in line, not the same slug, but would put him in line in terms of average and on base percentage to what he did. I'm looking at, that's the projection one. I'm sorry. Yeah. 235. Again, the slugging isn't there from that year, but it would still put him closer to where he was that first year. And would put him, close to a 90, over a 90, maybe a little, getting him close to that league average. So I think there's a pathway to league average, which I would certainly take. But I also wouldn't be shocked if we see more of the same.
Yeah, I think he just, throughout his career, I think it's easy to say he's been a streaky player. Like, we've seen months from him, and you're like, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the turnaround. Like, he'll take some walks, he'll hit some home runs. And like you said, he gets to like close to league average offensively. And then he has months like September where he's really good. Looks like one of the best offensive catchers out there. But then he has these stretches of 2 months or 6 weeks, whatever it is, where he is hitting like a 30 or 40 WRC plus, like down in the almost the Austin Hedges ranges. So because of the responsibility and the way the Guardians view the catching position, I think it's hard to trust that they're going to have that kind of consistent offensive catcher. Like they are so focused on the defense of the game calling, all that kind of stuff, and the preparation that it makes it hard. And catchers too also go through a lot. I know, like, we're gonna say, well, what about Cal Raleigh? Yeah, Cal Raleigh is a beast. He is an animal. He's got a large butt. There's a reason he was in the MVP race, because he does it on both sides of the ball. That's more of the exception than the rule. But yeah, I mean, there's Salvador Perez, who's he's been up and down throughout his career. We're talking about him off air before the show. You mentioned Adley. Rutschman had a great rookie year and has kind of fallen off since. It's hard to maintain as a catcher sometimes. So I struggle to believe that Bo Naylor is ever going to probably, like, in the draft, it was pretty certain that he was a bat first guy, right? That it was going to say, well, is he going to stick a catcher because the bat's going to ride before the glove? And will the Guardians wait? And turns out it's been the other way around. Maybe the offense would be unlocked if he did play somewhere else, but I don't know what that looks like anymore at this point for him. If you want to, try to see the glass as half full, if you want to believe in what he did in 2025, at least in terms of the later half of the year, there's 2 things I looked at. He had a 48.1% hard hit rate in September, which was the highest of his career. That would be a really good mark if he can sustain that. So we do, like, it wasn't a fluke what he did in September in terms of, like, he got lucky. He hit the ball harder, which is going to lead to better outcomes. So there is that. And also noticed last year he increased his bat speed from year over year. So I know he had been working on, like, swing path and efficiency and trying to be a little more direct through the ball so he didn't swing and miss as much. The one thing he does well is he doesn't chase. Like, he is a really good eye at the plate. Like, he's not passive. He actually does have a good eye at the plate. So there is that skill there. So maybe the bat speed and the hard hit rate, there's some correlation there that might give you something to hope on going into 2026. But I don't know. Is it fair to say, Jeff, that 2026 is a make or break year for him?
No, I don't think it's make or break, just because he's got value. Like, he's what he has done overall. He's going to be at least a backup. Like, it's not like he is broke and it's not going to work out. He can do enough to be, someone who backs up. His bat speed is still like 50th percentile. I think it went up like 2 miles last year. You go back to that great rookie year and he walked at an unsustainable pace. A lot of he didn't chase, he didn't whiff, he walked an unsustainable pace, and he didn't do anything else well. And that's kind of been the story of this guy's career, is like he doesn't hit the ball, the quality of contact isn't there, the hard hit. Well, it was great at the end of the month, and you're right, that is a potential. Like overall, it was 26th percentile on the year. Like he just doesn't have, it's actually who his profile is very similar to when you look at this, is like Daniel Schneemann. Like they're kind of very similar players in terms of famine. Well, it's just like high walk, don't chase, don't whiff. Schneemann actually barrels a little bit better than him, but it's like in both cases, it's like what's holding both these guys back is they don't hit the ball hard enough. They don't have enough of the hard hit to really turn them into above average bats. And that's the thing. Like I think, when Miles Naylor was, a draft prospect, you and I were out. That's because we could see the data that he doesn't hit the ball that hard. And frankly, like Josh has some big hits, but he's not the biggest necessarily hard hit guy as well. But I think Bo Naylor is a player that if we had the data then that we have now, he wouldn't have been a first rounder just because of that lack of hard hit. And we'll talk about another catcher in this episode who has that same issue with this org. And,
we definitely will talk about him. I want to talk about Bo Naylor's defense. We also have to talk about how the catching playing time will play out in 2026 before we get to catching prospects on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing. We've all been there. And when you have that position open that's still unfilled, when the pressure's on, you need the right hire, and it's a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the right people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, and location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your job post. And the minute we've been talking, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Spend less time searching, less stress, less time, more results. Interviewing candidates to check your boxes at Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Baseball is back, and you can lock in by joining the Everydayer Club. That gets you ad-free episodes and access to our group chat on Discord. For the next week or so, you can use the code SPRING, all caps, the word SPRING, for a free month. Go to lockedonguardians.supercast.com or hit the link in the show notes to learn more. We've got all kinds of chats going on over there, not just with us, but all the Locked On hosts for all the different shows are all over there hanging out, and other fans as well. So it's a good time over there to go check that out if you want to get involved, especially when games start. We'll have more popping over there. I thought it was interesting, and I think you're right. That's not really a make or break year for Bo Naylor. I think I phrased make or break more in terms of like, I think this is the year if he's ever going to deliver on like what we thought his true potential could be or what other people did. I think this is the year. Also want to say too, like catchers take longer to arrive. Like, yes, again, you have Adley Rutschmans and Cal Raleighs and certain guys that are just really good. And I think it's pretty obvious Bo Naylor is not going to be at that level. But that doesn't mean there can't be more ups than there already have been in his career. So sometimes catchers who do have talent, like I don't think Bo Naylor is talentless when it comes to offense, because at one time it was considered that the bat was ahead of the glove, like I said. So I don't think it's like over for him, but I think it's an important year for him if he's ever going to come anywhere close to the full upside we thought. And by the way, he's going to turn 26 this week. And like I said, I think catchers arrive a little later sometimes. I did think it was interesting, Jeff, that last year his defense kind of took a step back. He did have a 27% caught stealing rate, which was 17th overall in the league. That's pretty good. But his metrics and framing went backwards. Ironically, his blocking got better. I thought his throwing got better, but his framing was down. So he was a -3 in runs framing last year. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and we've also heard mixed reports on like his game calling and
yes,
his sequencing too. Like, so I think in some respects, like the defensive aspect of it feels a little bit overrated. Like, again, I don't think it's enough to like, I think he has enough pieces and parts to at least be a backup. with a chance for something more. Yeah, catchers do take longer. But I don't know. It's when I look at him and I look at the physical tools, there's just too many moments where he just seems to get like he loses track of the game. Like, he'll maybe not put the glove down. Like too many balls to bounce between the legs where it's just put the glove a little lower. Like those moments still happen to him, even though he's had over 300 big league games. Happen more than I see with other catchers. He still has kind of those mental lapses occasionally. And then just, I said, I want him to be close to league average because that's huge. I mean, for this team in general, but specifically at that position, especially because they've got, still 4 more years of control with him, I think. So you're hoping that he can step up a little bit more, but I struggle to see it with what we have seen. He just seems kind of meh defensively and below average offensively, and that feels like a backup, not a starter. I hope someone gets to clip this and laugh at me at the end of the year, and that he had the breakout, I should say. I really hope that's the case. But yeah, I agree and I think I'm probably too shaded by some of what we heard with, honestly, the sequencing and the pitch calling. And when people want to know why Hedges is out there, it's like I think some of the pitchers request him. I do think that there's, he does a stronger job with that. And I think that is also an issue.
Yeah, Hedges, by the way, for his part, we'll talk about, how playing time is going to be divvied up behind the plate. And obviously, Bo Naylor is going to get 70% of the reps, and he'll probably, he gets the day games after the night games off. And now that David Fry is back, tougher lefties like the Garrett Crochets and the Cole Reagans, Tarek Skubal, you can probably expect David Fry is going to go be back there as long as his elbow is okay. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I know we talked a little bit about David Fry on Tuesday's episode, but I am curious to see how much he ends up catching, because I do think that's important. Like, whether you like it or not, David Fry is important to this team because they're going to try to leverage, like you were saying yesterday, like he's going to play like a starter, or he's going to play more than he probably should, because I don't know if it's a vote thing or whatever, but I think it's a versatility thing. And we talked about that yesterday too, where they don't have a lot of options for guys who can hit lefties. And he is one of the options who potentially can. So he is important to the team, whether we like it or not. And he's going to get that time. He's going to be in there, and they need him to come through. And some of that's going to be a catcher. Some of that's going to be elsewhere. But the important thing for Fry, though, here is that he'll be able to, he's better than Hedges offensively, although Hedges had his moments in 2025 offensively.
He had a nice end streak too.
Yeah, you can at least leverage Fry a little bit offensively and only use Austin Hedges in a defensive role the way they wanted to in 2024 and couldn't in 2025. Hedges, by the way, 43% caught stealing rate and 4th in baseball in framing runs added. So the defense, like you said, still is fantastic, and the game calling is a little bit better. And I also expect, I haven't seen what the metrics going to be yet, but I'm sure Baseball Savant will have something about value added when it comes to challenges, like how many successful ABS challenges, because we know only catchers for Cleveland and Quan and Jose are probably the only 2 hitters that have a green light to challenge balls and strikes. But I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the year if we see who has the most successful challenge rate among catchers, and it's Austin Hedges.
No, agreed. I think that's a very good possibility there. And, I know a lot of people would just very much fixate, and I get the offense is not there, but, I'll say this is a guy who has made the postseason, like every single year for the last 5 years. The one year they didn't make it was the year Hedgie left. Like, he is always on successful teams. He always helps those teams. I get offensively, he's a bit of a black hole, but I mean, he just keeps being a successful part of every team he's on. Yeah.
And again, having David Fry back, and we'll see how good David Fry can be. It's an important year for him too, to prove, whether or not, of course, he spent the offseason probably rehabbing from that nasty hit by pitch, but it's going to be an important year for him, because then you can use him to, again, minimize Hedges' offense and maximize his defense. And that's the important part for this team. If you're going to not value offense at catcher, you're going to value defense. Like you talked about, like up the middle defense is important for them because of the pitching, catching is the same way. Like they have to value defensive catching because they're relying on pitching, and you need a good defensive catcher. You need good leaders back there to maximize your pitching, because if you're not going to be good at scoring runs, you got to be good at preventing them. And catcher is a massive role when it comes to that. And that's why Hedges is here. And that's why it's important to have David Fry healthy to minimize Hedges' offense, maximize his defense, and also put Bo Naylor in the best position to succeed and not put him out there against, maybe Scoobles and Reagans and Garrett Crochets. So if Bo Naylor ends up not being the long-term answer for the Guardians at catcher, is there anybody in the system that is? If there anybody exists, we'll talk about that in a second. If you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live in person, FanDuel is giving you a chance to turn that dream into a reality with the NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it's going to work. You're going to use your profit boost on any NBA future. You'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip or two. That's right. Flights, tickets, hotel, all included as part of the experience from FanDuel. That could be the Cavs. The way they're playing a lot better right now. They are back on Thursday, so it's a good chance to get a future bet in for the Cavs going to the finals and get yourself a chance to go to the NBA Finals and hopefully watch them play and win another championship. Guardians are starting on Saturday. We'll see some lines for spring training games if that's your thing too. We'll keep you updated on all those on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future. Get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Spring training baseball is coming your way this week. So is the World Baseball Classic. It's Jeff's favorite time of the year. Hit the bell on YouTube to get notified of the latest episodes, any other content we cover related to that, and all other videos that we put out. And if you auto-download on all your favorite audio platforms, you can take us wherever you go. Maybe you're flying to spring training. Download the episodes so you can listen to us on the plane out to Arizona or wherever you go as the weather warms up. And if you want the conversation to continue, maybe you're not in a Discord, you can check out joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians to text one-on-one with us, have some monthly video chats, get some news, some rumors, be part of our mailbags as well. All that stuff's over there. Okay, so catching prospects. We said we're not sure if Bo Naylor. I still think Bo Naylor is going to be here for quite a long time. Like I think it would take a lot. Yeah, I think it would take a lot for the Guardians to move on from him, because as much as like we talk about like the game calling maybe is not up to par with what we've heard sometimes, the organization loves his leadership, like learning Spanish and just how much prep work he puts in. So like
they actually have so few Spanish speaking pitchers.
Right.
So, like,
right.
It is. Don't get me wrong. It's great he did that, but it's like, so that's going to help with nobody this year.
Pedro Avila?
He's not even guaranteed to be on he's got a 2-way contract. He's going to start the year in AAA. Like they literally don't have one Spanish speaking pitcher, I don't think, right?
No, they don't. Actually, you're right. There's not a single pitcher that's
and they never. That's what we talked about. Go back and listen to our international drafts episode. We talked about how weird it was that they gave someone a little bit more money because they. You can go back to listen to older episodes where I explain why it's wise to not go into the international market for pitching. But yeah, they it's I guess when he talks to Gavin Williams and Tanner. I think I'm going to a whole other language.
Logan Allen is Panamanian on his mom's side. Do they speak Spanish in Panama? That's terrible geography by me. I don't know that.
I just know they keep their moving parts clean. That's all I know about Panama.
Fair enough. Yeah, the two guys on the staff that did speak Spanish are banned. So there goes that. So maybe Bo Naylor's Spanish was just that bad and he couldn't figure it out. No, probably not. It's probably pretty.
He was the ringleader.
Oh God. Oh well, now we're gonna have all kinds of problems if that's true. Jeez. You know what? I mean, with the Tony Clark stuff today, I don't know if I can handle any more drama that's not baseball related. Like, how off topic here? How bad is it for the sport that like the biggest stories in spring training aren't the World Baseball Classic or games? It's the lockout and Tony Clark and the gambling stuff. Like it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's just where baseball unfortunately is right now because they have a crappy offseason. It's like until
Nobody
they
hates their fans. Nobody hates their own sport more than Major League Baseball.
Unfortunately, that's like all of them. I mean, like I'm a big hockey guy. It's like, one of the great, jokes is this whole idea that the Bettman was an intentional ploy by David Stearns because he was his like assistant GM. He was gonna to destroy the NHL when it was at its peak. Like every commissioner is bad for their sport. It feels like, except for maybe Adam Silver and David Stern were well liked, but like.
I don't know. Adam Silver has said some weird things the last couple of years.
Normally, I'm not paying attention as much. I gotta admit, but like, I don't know. It's just, unfortunately, it's a very not great system with baseball. Like everything right now is very not great, and
it's not a great system for the Guardians in terms of catchers either. We said like make or break year for Bo Naylor, probably not, but it's an important year. Same for Cooper Ingle. He's going to spend the whole year at AAA. He's Rule 5 eligible or 40-man necessity come October. So there's a good chance that he could be added to the 40 at some point this year. And everybody last year coming into 2025 was really high in Cooper Ingle, ourselves included, friend of the show, great interview, great dude. But what we've seen as he's moved up is that it's a semi-passive approach. Like he does take walks, which is great, but there is some passivity there that he's taking some strikes, and there's a real lack of exit velocity that makes me. We were trying so hard to figure out before the show, like what's the best comp for Cooper Ingle as a major leaguer, and it's like it's tough to find one because he's kind of a tweener now. Like he's not a great defender; he's an okay defender. He doesn't have a great arm, but he has a great release. He's just like an average blocker / receiver in general. Like it's not great. And offensively, there's no power. Like he does a good job of getting the ball in the air to his pull side when the opportunity presents itself. He talked to us a lot about that in his interview. But there's just no exit velocity. So like it's a very hard profile to succeed. It just reads a lot like a guy who's a backup who might have a long career in terms of like being a third catcher, like a lot like Dom Nunez. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to say Cooper Ingle is not going to be a major leaguer because Dom Nunez has had cups of coffee, but this is a big year for Cooper Ingle to show whether or not he's going to have a chance of being a major league starter, or he's got platoon issues too. Like I hate to sit here and drag Cooper Ingle, who we really like, but like he's got a lot to prove this year.
A year ago this time, Cooper Ingle was making some top 100 lists. He was, and he was pushing up some lists, and what was it like? Keith Law had him as like the 4th prospect, and I believe had him as a top 100 prospect. And why did he fall on his list? Why did he fall on everyone's list? Even though like in 92 games in AA Akron, he was one of the most productive hitters in the entire Eastern League. This is a guy who was pushing onto one top 100 list, pushing in the top 5 prospects, dominates AA, goes up to AAA, doesn't look completely lost, and is slipping massively on every board. And it's the exit velo numbers are that bad. The exit velo numbers in particular are kind of like the borderline of being a useful major league talent or not. Like I think he's actually the opposite of Dom Nunez, as Nunez was like defensive first and could do all those other things. Like Cody Huff is more Dom Nunez to me, but like that just picking nits. I think he's I appreciate that for a lot of because you can't really teach plate discipline. You can't teach eye at the plate. And Cleveland will draft guys who had that skill and then hope to expand. Unfortunately, they weren't able to help anyone add any strength or power because they also drafted guys who had swings not conducive to it. The Ingles, the Evan Kula, Knapsack, Kwan, like you can just keep going. It's all of these same types. And unfortunately with Cooper Ingle, like all he has done is produce. I think he gets added to the 40-man just because of the high level of production, but it is he's a good athlete. But like what I was telling you off air is like, I think his best outcome is what Stephen Vogt thinks David Fry is, which is kind of that utility plus guy who plays 60 to 70% of the time and maybe have sit at points. And the other thing I have to say is, of course, Cleveland only believes in left-handed catching. Like, I don't think they have drafted, signed anyone who is, they'll always add at least 2. I think this year 3 Venezuelan left-handed catchers. They love their Venezuelan catchers, and they'll only catchers in particular have to hit left-handed for this org. Like, unlike, I know everyone complains about left versus right-handed bats. A lot of catchers are actually right-handed. But this org goes out of their way to, like, you have to be a left-handed hitter to play catcher here. You have to be like.
That's only been their trend the last decade, though, because I mean, Victor Martinez was a switch hitter, Carlos Santana was a switch hitter, but at one time there was Lou Marson, there was Yan Gomes, there was Roberto Perez, and then since then it's gone. Well, I mean, Hedges is right-handed. They did go out of their way to acquire him from San Diego when Roberto Perez, his body betrayed him.
Yeah,
but you're right. They normally stock their prospects with left-handed hitting catching from Venezuela.
Like, to me, the best right-handed hitting catching prospect in the system is Bennett Thompson. Like, I'm still a Thompson guy. I want to see what he can do at AA because, again, but Thompson is probably a poor man's Cooper Ingle, like a right-handed version where it's like
a lot of exit velocity.
I think we're going to see bad exit velocity. He's dominated every level. He's been older for the level, but dominated is probably not the right word. He's been very better than expected.
Ironically, the guy who hits the ball the hardest in the minors, well, there's Cozart, who we can talk about here in a second, but is Cody Huff. Cody Huff has had great exit velocities, but he has not been a guy who he can't get the ball in the air. He's also considered a great defender too, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's a future Hedges type because Hedges also at one time was a good offensive prospect, and people thought he had power. And if you look across baseball, like if you just kind of like sort by catchers in the majors, like who have been the most successful catchers, all these catchers, what they have in common at the top of the boards are guys who have power and guys who have great arms. Will Smith, Cal Raleigh, the Contrerases, even Mitch Garver, if you want to throw him in there, like other guys, Sean Murphy, all those guys, Shea Langoliers, all those guys, what do they do? They hit for power and they have rocket cannon arms. If you want to be a successful catcher in the major leagues long-term, you got to hit the ball over the fence, and you got to be able to throw the heck out of the ball down to second base. Everything else is important too. I mean, Mike Zunino, that was his profile, right? It was hit the ball hard and throw the ball hard down to second base. So
Sean Murphy as well.
Yeah, Sean Murphy. Jacob Cozart obviously is left-handed, but that's the profile Cozart has too. He has great exit velocities. He has a rocket for an arm. He's a good athlete. He's much bigger and more physical. I think there's probably more upside for Cozart than there is Ingle at this point, but obviously Ingle's going to have the higher floor. But it wouldn't shock me if by this time next year, Jeff, we're talking about Cozart as a better catching prospect than Ingle.
I think Cozart, the problem there, and the reason I was kind of not as big on him in his draft year, it's just like, I think we're going to see as he moves up the ladder, he's just not going to, he's already like, contact's just not there. Like, and that's going to be a struggle that's just going to get more pronounced as he faces better stuff. His K rates have been okay, but like he was a high second round pick and he's never really lit it up in his entire minor league career. And that's a red flag.
Yeah. This is also an important year for him too. A lot of these catchers, because the Guardians just have not had a really good catcher overall. I mean, Yan Gomes was like Roberto Perez in 2019, but we also remember the ball was juiced that year. Yan Gomes was the last Silver Slugger catcher, and before that, Sandy Alomar was their last. They had him for a long time, but catching's been a weird position
the entire time. Sandy Alomar is one of those great, like, people have such fond memories for a guy who played very little.
90 games a year. Yeah, he had 90. It was a rookie year, and then 97,
and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, well, let us know what you think about the Guardians' catching situation this year. Prospects tomorrow, we'll talk to you about Travis Bazzana and using the World Baseball Classic as a springboard for him, and we'll talk about why parity in Major League Baseball is not as good as you think it is. Plus, we'll react to any news of the day from camp and in baseball, as long as it doesn't involve Tony Clark.
Thank you all for joining us, and go Guardians, go.